Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this evening for this BPSA webinar in collaboration with the Female Pharmacy Leaders Network. I'm Natalia and I'm the Secretary General of the BPSA, and I'm really excited to be here this evening with our amazing speakers and to hear the discussions that will happen over the next hour. There will also be an opportunity for you to ask your questions later this evening, and this will be facilitated by my BPSA teammate Molly. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Molly. I'm the Publications Officer of the BPSA.
Thank you. So without further ado, I'll pass over to the Female Pharmacy Leaders Network team to introduce themselves and share their words.
Thank you so much, Natalia, and thank you to the BPSA for inviting us to be part of this webinar. We were saying just as we were coming into the webinar that we love working with the BPSA. So we're really excited to be here. I'm Kamal. I'm one of the co-founders of the Female Pharmacy Leaders Network, along with my co-founder Rena, who's here today, and Ruth, who is one of our network members and also on our steering group as well. Myself and Rena and Harpreet, who unfortunately can't make it today, but she sends her apologies. We set up the network back in 2021. Really from our own experiences of being in leadership positions within pharmacy. Rena has been a board member at the NPA, as well as the Community Pharmacy England Committee, and sat on various different committees and boards along the way, and found herself often to be the only female there, but also often the only female of colour. And so we set up the network really to support our colleagues within the pharmacy profession to put themselves forward for leadership positions, to put themselves forward for whatever positions it is that they aspire to be in, and have a safe space for everyone to meet and to connect and to grow, really. And we are really proud because the network is now almost 800 strong, actually. So we are growing. We grow every single time that we have a meetup. And it's such a pleasure to be able to be here and support you guys as well on your journey, hopefully at some point, if you choose to be part of the network. Just to give you a little bit of background in terms of what some of the figures actually around leadership. So as most of you will be familiar with, over 60% of the profession are female. And so that's quite unique for for a healthcare profession network across the UK. We're obviously the third largest in the UK in terms of profession as well. And but the numbers when you get to leadership are pretty stark. When we looked at the figures a couple of years ago, we were looking at about 32 to 35% of leadership was women. And we've seen various different reports that have come out over the years. The PRES report is a key one, where it's talked about this real gap in leadership attainment, essentially, between males and females in our profession. And our whole ethos is around trying to close that gap, essentially. So we run monthly meetups, and we've been doing that since 2021. We started off in International Women's Day. In 2021, we ran a panel discussion where we talked about the barriers and the challenges that we experience when we want to put ourselves forward for leadership positions. And that was the initiation of the conversation. And we run monthly meetups every single month. We've talked about a whole array of topics. I mean, we've talked about racism on our meetups. We've talked about emotional intelligence. We've talked about AI. It's a real breadth of topics that we've talked about. We've even talked about personal brand. And one of the things that we often get commented on is that we run sessions on topics that most other pharmacy groups and organizations just don't talk about. And so we're really proud of that, because we really listen to our network, and we listen to what they need, and we try to deliver that for our network. So I am going to hand over to Ruth because I'd love Ruth to give a little bit of background as to how did you find out about us, Ruth, actually, and you've been with us from the start. So yeah, share your experiences of being part of the network.
Thanks so much, Kamal. And yeah, I actually can't remember the first event that I attended. Was the panel discussion online, or was that at an RPS event? Was it an online, the
It
very
was an
first event?
NHS event.
Was it an NHS? So I wasn't at that.
Mhm.
However, Harpreet, who's one of the other co-founders and can't be here tonight, is my coach. I work with Harpreet, or have been working with Harpreet for around about 3 years now, on and off on a whole variety of different things. Around my own leadership, and she said, you must come along to this group. This is Rena and Kamal and I have just set this up. I'd heard of Kamal and Rena, but I'd never met them before the group. And actually I would say I've got to know you fairly well. We've yeah, it's just, for me, it's a safe space. Kamal mentioned that. We've had quite a bit of debate recently about, what does the network look like? What's it going to look like in the future? And, should it just be female? Should it continue to focus on some of the topics that we've been looking at? And actually the consensus from a lot of people, from everybody really, was yes, keep it as it is, because actually it feels really supportive. There's not a competitive edge to it. It's very much, I've shared lots of quite personal issues sometimes around challenges I've experienced and so on, and the support and the kind of advice and the information that people share is just really, really lovely. And I feel I've grown because of being part of the group. I do love the face-to-face meetups. So lovely to catch up with people. And unfortunately, I didn't make it to the retreat this year. That you ran a 1-day retreat as well, didn't you? So I didn't make that. So I'm going to try and make sure it's in my diary for next year.
It's
So yeah.
definitely in there for next year. Thank you, Ruth. One of the things that came to mind when you were talking about safe space, actually, for me is we have people who are part of the network who literally span the entire sector. And that's the nice thing about the network. We're not, we're not sector specific. It's not community pharmacy or hospital. We have pharmacists literally across the spectra of our profession, and across all levels of our profession. And that's the really nice thing about our group, that you can come to a meetup, and there is no hierarchy, right? Because when we come to the meetup, everyone is sharing their experiences, and there's no kind of sense of this person is, you may have met them at a meeting or you may have worked with them, but when you come to the meetup, we're all the same, we're all equal. And I really love that, actually, because it means that people do feel comfortable about sharing their experiences. And our meetups are very discussion heavy, aren't they?
They are. I was also just going to say that one of the big things for me when I joined the network was I'd just taken on my first sort of senior leadership role, became a head of school just shortly after the leadership network was joined. And that was incredible, having people, knowing people had my back almost, because it's quite a lonely place to be in a leadership position. You don't always feel that you can share your vulnerabilities to make the way that you perhaps would do if you're in a team. So yeah, that's been a really useful part of it for me.
Thank you, Ruth. Rena, do you want to add anything to?
Yeah, I think you both said it all, but I guess I wanted to kind of share the fact that women do need a safe space. And I think that's something we hadn't realized. I think even though we make up the majority of the profession, it can be really daunting in a senior level. So I sat on the National Pharmacy Association board for 5 years as one of 17 people, but I was the only woman. And so month in, month out, I would attend 2-day meetings with 16 men and me. And I hadn't kind of clocked how lonely that is until we kind of created this network, and how much I needed the support of other women. And sometimes you can find women who support women, and that's just lovely. But sometimes you can find the opposite. So sometimes I've worked in jobs before where my boss was a female, and you think they'd be really supportive, and actually they were quite the opposite. And so it's actually what we're trying to do is not only help people be leaders in their profession, but actually good employers, and be supportive to women. And I think the more you attend some of our sessions, the more you realize the challenges that women have. And because it's a safe space, people share their challenges, and it helps to broaden my mind and helps me to think about different ways that I could support my own team. As an employer, I own a pharmacy and I employ a team of all women. I do like men, but just they don't like working with me. So I do obviously, want to make sure people feel safe in their working environments. And what's been really nice from the network is that we've seen people go for leadership positions that they wouldn't have gone for before. So we've helped people with that little bit of courage that you sometimes just need to put yourself forward for a role. And so I know Tasse won't mind us saying this, but Tasse is the chair of the English Pharmacy Board. And, she always says it was us guys who gave us the kind of the push that she needed to put herself forward to become a board member, and then obviously showed her worth and proved her worth and got voted as the chair of the English Pharmacy Board. And I think it's so important to have role models that are women, but also we need to have women in these positions, because we can't be it if we can't see it. And I really felt strongly when I was on that board that I shouldn't be the only woman. And now I'm really pleased to say there are 3 women on the MPA board, which is great, which is better than one lonely one. And so I just think sometimes you have to be brave, and you have to be that first person to kind of break a mold, and to show people that actually we have a different perspective, and we just do think we have different brains, don't we? We just think differently sometimes. And so having that diversity of thought, diversity of gender is both really, really important in any organization, and especially in leadership positions.
Do we have any questions? I suppose we open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you. So yes, if anyone has any questions, use the Q&A function, and I'll pass over to Molly now to lead this part of the session.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you so much. That was so insightful. I think it's so important to recognize the importance of having female leaders to look up to in pharmacy. I think particularly when I think of at my university, Kingston, and I think 90% of the course is female, and it would be really nice to see that reflected in leadership positions as well. I think that's something that's so important. So guys, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function down at the bottom. But if you guys don't mind, I'm going to start with a couple of questions of my own, if that's okay. So my first question is, do you have any advice that you would give to pharmacy students or trainees or early career pharmacists who are maybe aspiring to be in a leadership position one day, but maybe don't have the confidence in their ability or in themselves to feel like they are able to go for those leadership positions?
Can I come in on that one?
Go on, Ruth. Yeah, we can all add our 2 pence to this one, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say I live and breathe this at the moment. Yeah. One of the things I would say, first of all, is that every pharmacist is a leader, and every pharmacist has to demonstrate leadership. And so it's not necessarily just aspiring to be a leader in the future. You are a leader now. So is it standard 9 of the standards for pharmacy professionals is demonstrate leadership. And you need to think about where you're doing that to start with. It might be in just a very, very small team, or it might be within just leadership in your role with patients. And it's thinking of it in that way. And then if you are aspiring to be a leader in the future as well, if you want to be somebody who is a senior leader, let's call it that, senior leader, somebody, it's not necessarily about role. it's about your attributes and how you interact with people. One of the things I did with a group of students 4 or 5 years, yeah, about 4 years ago, is that we looked at the RPS competencies for advanced practice, and we looked at the leadership competencies, and we fourth year students mapped themselves to those competencies, and they kept saying, but I can't do this now. And I said, no, that's okay. That's not where you need to be. What you need to think about is, what are you going to do to get yourself to where you want to be? So if you aspire to be a chief pharmacist, for example, what opportunities are you going to take or make for yourself to be able to do that? And kind of step out of your comfort zone a little bit and try something. So it's not about big jumps, it's not about big steps, it's about just taking steps. It's about listening to people, it's about taking the opportunity to pick up on a small role and to demonstrate that you can do that, build your confidence and move on to something else. And the other two, I've got brain block now. The other two will come in definitely with that.
I can go next, and then if you want to chip in, then Ruth. I was going to say it's exactly what Ruth said. Leadership isn't necessarily a title. You don't have to be a board member. You don't have to be CEO. We are all leaders in our own sense. And I guess I take students from Kingston University, and one of the things I always say to them is, you need to get out your comfort zone. Students tend to be in this little comfort zone of just frightened to talk to a patient, frightened to answer the phone in the pharmacy, frightened to talk to another member of staff. And I say to them, how could I do my job if I can't look at someone in the face and talk to them? And if I can't talk to a patient, if I can't talk to my colleagues, if I can't answer a phone, how am I going to be a pharmacist? So think of that comfort zone, think of that discomfort zone, and blur the lines. And I think if you start to do that while you're a student, it will really help you when you become a trainee pharmacist and then early careers pharmacist. And I think that's my biggest advice, having seen a lot of students come in and out of my pharmacy. That's the one thing I always feel like I'm having to lecture all of them about. Like, just don't be afraid to talk, and don't be afraid to say when you don't know something. You don't have to have all the answers. You will never have all the answers. And actually, that's a safe pharmacist if you don't have all the answers. But what you need to be able to do is, communicate well, to be able to put patients at ease, to put your colleagues at ease, and just speak with confidence. And I think the second thing I was going to mention is networking. Attending an event like this is amazing. So you've attended this, follow us on LinkedIn afterwards, connect with us, comment on our posts. We'll get to know you, you get to know us. And that is how I kind of got to my leadership positions that I've got myself into. I networked, and I did it because I actually just generally enjoyed it. I love meeting other pharmacists. And then I discovered social media, and I found that an amazing platform to learn how to network with people. So you'll see us on LinkedIn, Twitter. They're the kind of two main platforms that we tend to use. And I feel that people are very good at doing personal networking, but professional networking seems to just kind of slip aside. And I've got a trainee pharmacist. I've got two trainee pharmacists, and I said to one of them, you're going to the RPS Black History Month event, and I can't come with you. You're going to go by yourself. And all day she kept saying to me, do I have to go? Do I have to go? I was like, yes, I'm really sorry. You are going to go to this event because it's a face-to-face event, and you're going to meet people, and you're going to be inspired. And she kept coming up with all these excuses, coming up to me all day. And I said, I'm really sorry. I'm putting my foot down. You are going to this event. And the next day she came back and said, thank you. It was really great. I met some amazing people. It was really inspiring. I was like, see, it just takes a little bit of courage coming out of that comfort zone, sitting on a train for an hour and just going into somewhere different and walking into a room on your own. And it's not comfortable. I know it isn't. But you just sometimes have to do it to then put yourself in that place where you are networking. People know you, people recognize you. And, things like social media really help if you're able to put your positions and your thoughts and your views on things. People get to know you, people then invite you to meetings, people then invite you to events, and I think that's how you get known. And then my last piece of advice is mentoring and coaching, which I'm sure Komal will talk about as well, which I might leave for Komal to talk about because she does both, so I'll leave her to speak about those. But my first two bits of advice, and hopefully Ruth will remember hers, were the comfort zone, push yourself out of that comfort zone and blur the lines between comfort and discomfort, and then don't be afraid to speak and network.
Yeah, I mean, look, I echo everything that Ruth and Rena have said. Ruth, did you want to come in?
It's fine, you do your bit because I have actually written down what I remembered so I didn't forget it again.
Oh, please, please,
No, no,
please.
no, you carry on. I've got it. I'll remember it because it's got it
Okay, great. No, but you know, carrying on from what Rena said about coaching and mentoring, it's so, so important. I don't think I valued that enough when I was in my early stages of my career. And I didn't really know, I didn't have the confidence to be able to go out and ask people for mentorship or ask people, for coaching. And I think social media now makes it that much easier because you can follow the people that you resonate with, you can ask them questions, and don't be afraid to just say, can I jump on a call to learn more about who you are and what you do and your experience, and learn more about your experiences, because the pharmacy profession, most pharmacists you come across will be very happy to share their experiences and very happy to share their knowledge and expertise with you, because they know that it grows us together as a profession. And I think, don't be afraid to ask people that you're following, can I have 10 minutes of your time to learn more about what you do? And look out for those people that you resonate with, who might be a few steps ahead of you in terms of where you want to aspire to be. Let's take the example of a chief pharmacist. Follow the chief pharmacists, follow what they do, follow where they hang out, essentially, and build those relationships with them. And don't be afraid to use things like the RPS mentorship program if you're part of the RPS as well. And reach out, like if you're part of the Female Pharmacy Leaders Network, for example, and you come across a colleague that you really would love to connect with and perhaps have mentorship from, don't be afraid to reach out to them and say, I'd really appreciate your support with helping me to grow in my profession and in my career. So yeah, a lot of us will want to pay it forward, and we're very happy to.
One of the best things about a leader, in my opinion, is when they put the ladder down behind them for other people to come up. There are a lot of leaders out there who won't do that. And that's quite sad. But as Kamal says, if you kind of reach out to people, you'll soon get a sense if somebody is willing to support you. Maybe try it on social media first of all. There's a couple of things I was going to say really on the back of what Rena said around stepping out of your comfort zone. Little things that you can do while you're in class is step up and lead a discussion in a small group in a class. So take the opportunity, even if it's something you're not comfortable doing, or if you're not somebody that normally speaks out, set yourself a challenge to do it one day. And you can say to people, look, I'm nervous about this, and I would really appreciate some feedback afterwards if that, but just set yourself little challenges. Ask a question in class if you're somebody that doesn't normally speak up. Say to yourself one day, right, I'm just going to do this. Don't be focusing on the question for the whole hour of the class because you'll not listen to anything else. But yeah, little things like that. And then the other thing I was just going to say, I can see that Martina's in the audience. I ran a networking training session for the BPSA Business and Practice several years back, and it was really good fun, and it would, I'm sure, fit with an annual conference theme if you wanted to do something like that. We actually went out that evening on, I can't remember if it was a BPSA or an RPS event we went on. And so I set everybody the challenge to go and find somebody they'd never met before and have a conversation with them. So yeah, really good fun. So would be happy to help you with something like that if that's of interest.
I was going to add one more thing because again, from the students that I see, there's such a lack of confidence in people. And I always say to them, look, I was the sort of person that wouldn't say boo to a goose. When I first qualified as a pharmacist, I remember going to my first ever meeting. It's like a pharmacy contractor meeting of other pharmacy owners. And I really wanted to ask a question, and I was so nervous. The room was full of people I didn't know. And remember thinking, shall I ask it? Shall I ask it? What should I do? And I remember putting my hand up. And then when they picked me, my heart was beating so fast in my chest. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, my mouth went dry. I was so nervous. I can't tell you how nervous I was. I asked a question and I actually got a round of applause after asking that question. And I just thought, wow, okay, that's really interesting. So I obviously asked a question that everybody wanted to ask in the room, but nobody had the guts to ask that question. And so when you do put yourself out that comfort zone and you find confidence from places, you sometimes can speak for others and then you help them to use their voice. So for example, today I said to Komal, you introduce the session, because I want everyone to hear Komal's voice, and we've got Ruth helping us coming today as well. So we want you to hear other people's voices. It shouldn't just be your own voice. But if you do feel that you don't have the confidence and you look at people like me or Komal or Ruth and think, gosh, how do they do it? Trust me, we've learned along the way. We were never confident to start with. I think all three of us are the same. None of us are confident. None of us thought we'd be leading a network. None of us thought we'd be a head of school, a pharmacist or a board member. We just didn't start like that. But what I've done slowly is watch and learn from some really good leaders and watch and learn from some really bad leaders. And what I've then done is found my own little path. And I think that's probably a really useful way to start. You'll have some inspiring lecturers. I remember having some amazing ones and looking at them thinking, wow, how do they do what they do and just stand there and just have all this knowledge? They're just amazing. And then we had some terrible ones who could barely understand. And I was like, well, what the hell is this organic chemistry teacher telling me? I just don't get it. And how is this guy a lecturer? And I just think, God, I don't want to be like that. I want to be like that other person who just, really made me understand that topic. And so, look and learn and find your own path. But if you're shy, scared, everybody starts that way. And, just remember that all of us start that way.
Wow, thank you so much. There was so much good advice in there. Wow. I'm really going to take some of that on board. I think the main takeaway from all that is that confidence seems like it's more of a habit that you kind of build yourself up to than it's something that you just have. So thank you so much for that. That was really insightful. So we're going to go on to we've got a couple of questions in the Q&A now. So the first one, what opportunities are available, or what advice would you give to students wanting to get into leadership roles?
I think we've probably already touched on the answer to that, haven't we, a little bit? But just I would add a couple of extra things. There will be things within your university that you can get involved in, so class reps, sort of student union opportunities. You have to just think about what. So I was part of society when I was at university, and I ended up becoming the vice president of that. And I hadn't intended to. It wasn't a kind of conscious thing. I just kind of ended up in it. And like Rena, I wouldn't say boo too goose. In fact, I found my pre-reg manual recently, and it's got this comment in it at 13 weeks where my tutor said, you need to come out of your shell. And about 3 or 4 years later, I said to him, it's all your fault that I'm now a really gobby woman, because you told me I had to come out of my shell, and I did, but it took time. So there are opportunities obviously within BPSA. There will be opportunities within your university, but you can also take on, like we said already, really small leadership roles within the class, within different things, within societies, clubs, and so on, and outside in life as well. One of the things that people you can do volunteering things, so volunteering opportunities, and start to get involved in potentially leadership around that as well. Again, it's all that comfort zone thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think another thing I was thinking about, how did I kind of start? I guess when I went to events face to face, I made a point of going to talk to the leaders, and I made a point of introducing myself. And you said about being a gobby woman. I got called a gobby woman too, actually. It's quite interesting, isn't it? How we both got called that. But then I guess you use your voice for good. And that's, if you are gobby and you use your voice for good, that's always a great asset for a leader, isn't it, to be able to do that. But yeah, so whenever I went to events, I would make it a point to introduce myself to some of the people who were presenting, go up to them afterwards and ask them a question. And then in those days, you would swap emails. And actually, I'd always email afterwards and say, it was really nice to meet you. And then actually, each of those people I did it to, at some point, they've called me, say, we met at this event 2-3 years ago. How would you like to do this presentation? Could you help me on this piece of work? And that's how I kind of got known, if that makes sense. Otherwise, I just have a little pharmacy in Sutton and Surrey, just a tiny little pharmacy, and I could be a nobody. I could just be going to work every day, doing my own job, and nobody would even know I exist. But I guess it's making yourself known. And then social media has really, really helped. Following the right people, commenting on their posts, and including them in posts and engaging with people. I think if you've got aspirations to get to senior roles quickly, or you want to be involved in a particular organization, get yourself known. You can't do it if nobody knows you. So either face to face or using social media, use the skills and the knowledge that you have to kind of, make sure you make your mark.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just want to add to that is it's really about how you market yourself ultimately. And I think it's really important for you to think about it like that as well, because I remember thinking back going, oh, actually, the first day that you become a pharmacist, patients see you as a leader anyway, right? But the question is, do you see yourself like that? And so that's where you've really got to kind of work on your own mindset, and think about who is the type of person who is the leader that I aspire to be, and how do I move myself every single day towards that vision of myself, and it's really thinking about having that self-reflection piece as well, in terms of, what am I doing this week, this month, to move me that much closer towards that vision that I have of myself, and what actions have I taken to do that. And I found for myself that's been really, really massively helpful, because it's helped me to move outside of that really shy person that I was when I first started off as a pharmacist, and exactly like Rena and Ruth said, was too scared to speak up in a meeting. I mean, I've been in those meetings where I've literally been the only woman there, and I had something that I really wanted to say, and I came out really annoyed at myself that I didn't say it, and so and it takes a lot of self-reflection to be able to actually build up your confidence to be able to do that, and realize that actually I do have a voice that's worthy of speaking out, and speaking up, and that only comes through self-reflection, really. And I think that's a really important part of what you guys do as a student. If you build that habit of self-reflecting and looking at the areas where you feel that you haven't quite, kind of stepped that much out of your comfort zone, what can you do next time to do that,
Can I add a little word of caution around the networking and the building the confidence? We're kind of going off piste a little bit with the questions, but when Rena, I'm going to make an assumption here, right? So one of the things when you network is don't go in and tell them lots about yourself and speak about yourself. Go in, introduce yourself, and be curious about them. So one of the things I often say to students is, if you're sitting next to somebody at a conference and you've just listened to a presentation, or you've come out with something, turn to somebody that's a complete stranger and said, hi, I'm Ruth, what did you take away from that session, or whatever. And usually if you ask people a question about themselves, they're quite happy to tell you something. Whereas if you walk in and say, hi, I'm Ruth, I'm head of school of pharmacy, and I'm this and I'm that, and I've done this and I've done that, and actually that just winds people up, and they go, you don't want to know you, kind of thing. So it's about just taking that approach and being curious about people and being respectful and listening to what they're saying, and following up on things that they say.
I just had a real life example of that recently. I went to the Pharmacy Business Awards. And they have like a pre-networking thing where there's drinks and you're just chatting to people who've been invited. And I got introduced to this guy, and I thought, this guy must be important that I've been introduced to him, but I didn't know who he was. And so I just thought, okay, let me talk to him about him, and he asked me a few questions about me. And then afterwards, I walked away and I asked somebody, who was that? And that was the Minister for Pharmacy. And I had no idea, because, the new Labour government, I just didn't realise. So I'd been talking to Stephen Kinnock, who is the son of Neil Kinnock, who was a really famous Labour MP. And I was like, thank God I didn't put my foot in it, and I didn't moan about stuff, or I was like really, I was very kind of like, I don't know who you are, but I'm gonna pretend I know who you are and like style it out. And it was just really funny. And so even now, 25 years of being a pharmacist, I can be in a room and I don't know people, but as Ruth said, you've got to be humble and you've got to kind of be able to come across in a way that you don't, make anyone offended, or just, this was a really important person and I just didn't realize who he was, It was just funny. So, you can find yourself in situations like that, even 25 years on. It's quite amusing.
Thank you so much. It's incredible, really, when you look and you notice, you realize that there are opportunities everywhere, whether that's, in your day-to-day life, uni, BPSA, it can be anything. Anything can be an opportunity if you make it. So let's move on to the next question. How can I encourage other female students around me to try and join the network?
Great question. Tell them about the network. That's the first step. Tell them about the network. Tell them, come to an event. We're a free network, so we've actually got our next event tomorrow for this month, where we're going to be talking about women, work, and happiness. So follow us on social media. I'll put the links in the chat in a minute, but yeah, follow us on social media. Join the network, register, you'll get our emails then, so you'll find out about events that are coming up. And just come along. Even if you just come along and you listen, you'll learn. And you'll slowly build your confidence to be able to speak up, even on an online meetup like this. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else got anything else that I want to add.
Well, I think you should be encouraging people to join networks, because we have a problem. If 60% of our profession is with female and only 30% of the leadership is female, we have a real gap. And the more we encourage women to just even talk about those stats and be conscious of them, and support women to push themselves for roles, or if you're in a group setting and you're doing a workshop on something, and it's always a guy who puts his hand up to say, I'll do the presenting back or whatever. Just say, oh, actually no, why doesn't this person do it, and choose the silent one and get them to go out their comfort zone. And I think just being aware that we have an issue is something, and then trying to do something about it, like joining our network, or just being a bit of I always sort of joke, I'm a bit of a pharmacy suffragette. I just think we need to kind of be out there saying votes for women, because if we don't do that, people don't realize there's a problem. And then what we get that way is some really amazing male allies. So I'm sure Emeka is one of them, a really great male ally who supports women. And that's why he's helped us have this webinar today. But also women supporting women, which we talked about earlier, is so powerful. There's no force like it. And me, Harpreet, and Komal have definitely discovered that from setting up this network. There is no force more powerful than 3 women on a mission. Working in that way is just really just a nice way to work going forward. So that would be my kind of top tips about encouraging other women to join the network.
Thank you so much for that. So we got another question related to the network now. What other events does the network run aside from webinars and the retreat that you talked about before?
Can I come in? We've run a couple of in-person meetups, so we've had a couple of networking events as well. We had one in London, we had one in Manchester, that kind of was at the end of CPC as well. And we've also run a live meetup, essentially, where we discussed leadership in women at CPC. So those are the events. But we're evolving, the network's evolving as well, and we've just set up a steering group now to decide on the direction of travel for the network now, and I suppose the next stage and phase of the network. So hopefully the plans are to at some point increase the sort of number of like in-person events that we hold, and maybe kind of change some of the formats and things, but yeah, those are essentially the events that we hold throughout the year. So yeah, we usually break in the summer. We don't have a meetup in the summer, and we don't have we generally will have our online Christmas party for December. Yeah, so I think all in all, we run about eight meetups a year, 8 to 10 meetups a year.
We also collaborate with the RPS. So we do
Yes.
support them with their South Asian History Month and Black History Month. And something else we do, I've forgotten now.
International Women's Day.
International Women's Day, that's it. Yeah, International Women's Day. So we work with them to host their events as well and support their events. And actually, if any of you have any ideas of things you'd like us to do, we'd be really up for any ideas, any thoughts, anything you can think we could do to help students in particular. Because I mean, you know, the current students are going to come out as independent prescribers. That's a huge clinical responsibility, and with that responsibility comes the need for leadership. And so I do feel that actually your kind of the current generation of students need even more support. So if there's anything that you think of that you wish that we could help you offer, then please do reach out to us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, next question. Does taking on a leadership role as a woman impact your ability to meet family commitments and commitments in general? And if so, how do you navigate or balance these responsibilities?
This is such a good question, isn't it?
It's the eternal question. How do you balance it all?
100%. It is the eternal question. We're actually going to be talking about it tomorrow at our meetup. So we've actually got a pharmacist who's done a PhD in women work and happiness, and she's actually going to be coming and talking to us about it. But it is a question that I think you have to. We've discussed this quite a lot actually in the network, and one of the things that always seems to come up as a kind of theme is you really got to think about the different stages of your life and your career, and at each stage the balance will shift, and you know there's quite a bit of ebb and flow in your life. You know, when I first started as a pharmacist, I could spend all of my time working as a pharmacist because I didn't have a partner, I didn't have other commitments, you know. But as you move through the journey of your life, your balance is going to shift. What you want out of your career is going to shift. And I think it's really important for you to always think about what is right for you at that point in time, and shift things according to that. I mean, I can certainly say from my experience, I know Rena has as well, and I'm sure Ruth has too, that, you know, this isn't, it's not a one size fits all, and it's not you know, this is the ideal blueprint, because there isn't one.
Totally agree. And I think there's a couple of things that I'd probably add. One is societal expectation of women. We have to break some of those molds. You know, just because we have the children doesn't mean we have to look after them all the time. Doesn't mean that we can't be the main breadwinner. Doesn't mean that we can't have a career. I think it's really important that you think about the juggling. There's just always juggling of everything when you're a woman, because you juggle, you know, home life, work life, friend life, family life. But actually, I took on the burden of all of those roles. Why have I taken that burden on? Why does it have to be me that organizes the family social life? Why does it have to be me that books the holidays? You know, sometimes we do things because we're a bit control freakish as women. We like to organize things and we like to do things, and sometimes we don't want to let go of the control. So actually, if I leave my kids with my husband, will they go hungry? Will they, you know, will they wash? Will they be okay? Why do I worry about things like that? Because when my husband leaves the kids with me, he never has to think about that. So sometimes we have to let go of some of our societal expectations. We have to learn to juggle, which I just think is the eternal question and struggle of being a working mum. But also, I read this really good quote, and it's really stuck with me since kind of COVID. There is no such thing as work-life balance. The balance lies within you. And actually, if you create the balance in you, where you feel you're giving enough time to your work, enough time to your family, enough time to yourself, if you manage all those three things in a balanced way, that is the ultimate kind of goal for all of us. And sometimes where women do struggle is where we try to work more than be a mum, or be a mum more than work, and you're just left with this guilt everywhere that I'm not a good mum, I'm not a good pharmacist, you know, just feel rubbish about everything. So if you can create balance in all of these kind of roles that we hold, that's how you create the perfect work-life balance.
Can I come in with a slightly different perspective? Because I'm not a mum, not by choice, and I believe that I probably wouldn't have achieved in my career what I have done had I had children. I might have done. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily wouldn't. And to me, that feels a bit wrong, because I shouldn't have had to not get to where I wanted to be and still be able to be a mum. I kind of do resent the fact that sometimes women have to make a choice, and it's that point about ebb and flow. And I regularly say to young colleagues and you know who have family, you know, if you're prioritizing your family right now, that's the best thing that you can do, because your career is still going to be there when they're grown up and gone. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about because I wasn't able to have children, I probably achieved more earlier on than some of my colleagues who were having family. And sometimes there was a bit of resentment around that. And I remember thinking, but I would be so pleased to have children who have been as successful and as well-rounded and all the rest of it. You know, yes, I've achieved a bit in my career, but actually, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side sometimes, isn't it? You know, and that resentment, sometimes it's back to that women are not always kind to other women, because they see what somebody else has and think, actually, why haven't I got that? So it's about the balance and the choices that you're making at that point in your life, really, isn't it? Sorry, that was very honest of me,
No,
wasn't it?
thank you very. I was going to say thanks for sharing that honesty, Ruth, because I think that's, again, like, this is the sort of stuff we discuss in our networks, and sometimes it helps to broaden your mind and think differently. You know, I kind of have my life, which is kids and partner and work and all of those things, and to hear Ruth's story is really important, isn't it? So that we have empathy for other women, and that's how we become better leaders, and that's how we support women. So thank you, Ruth. That was really
Definitely, Ruth. I mean, I think it comes back down to what's right for you at any given point in your career. And you've really got to sit firm in that, you know. And like Rena said, being part of networks, you learn about other people's experiences and what's right for them, and you learn from hearing how other people are balancing, and you think, oh well, actually maybe I could try doing that, maybe that could be a good fit for me. And also, it's about, I think, when it comes to developing in your career, one of the things I would also say is there is no linear path. Like, it's not a really nice, it's all squiggly. We always often talk about this. It's quite squiggly in the middle, and you know, there's no kind of none of us, I'm pretty sure the three of us have not had a linear career at all in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's also being open to that as well. I think sometimes we kind of feel like, oh, well, I've got to do this thing, and then after that, I've got to do this thing. And I've coached lots of pharmacists who have not had a linear path at all. And I think that's also because their choices have ebbed and flowed as they've moved through their careers, and they've then made a different choice because of life circumstances, and they've kind of gone, right, I can't do this thing right now, but let me see what else is out there, and shifted towards that. And that's the wonderful thing about our career, if I'm honest. I don't see that happening in many other professions at all. And I think we're really lucky, actually, that pharmacy enables us to be able to move around different sectors, move around in different roles, and, you know, and be able to have that, you know, ebb and flow with the balance that's right for us at any given time.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, guys. Someone in the comments has said, wow, thank you so much. You're all so inspirational. I just mention that before we move on to the next question. What other challenges have you faced in your pharmacy career as a woman, and how did you overcome them?
I'm happy to go first on that one. I guess many challenges. Being the only woman in a room for a long time, being the only Asian woman in a room many times, have been challenging. I think about my first, one of the first meetings I went to where I was the only Asian woman, and I was kind of walked in, and one of the guys said to me, "Oh, it's good to have a woman here. Did you bring the samosas?" And I just kind of looked at him and thought, "You are joking." And I made it my mission to kind of prove him wrong, that I haven't just come to be the token woman who brings the samosas along. I am going to contribute fully and be an essential member of this kind of organization. And by the end of my time with this particular person, they were begging me to stay because they realized the contribution I'd made. Initially, it'd been a joke. And then, so sometimes I've always been the kind of believer of proving your worth and giving things your all so that people can't criticize you in that sense. And I guess the other thing I've learned in leadership roles is that not everyone's going to like you. And that's really tough. If you're a people pleaser and you like being liked, it's really hard to not be liked. It's really hard to be criticized. And it's really important to recognize that you will always have somebody who doesn't like you, always. That's just part and parcel of being a leader. Think about all the famous people in the world, all the politicians, they've got people who love them, people who hate them. It's just part of leadership. And I think the earlier you recognize that, that was a hard lesson for me to learn. And I learned it the hard way. And I think the earlier you recognize that, the better leader you will be. But don't be antagonistic that you create people who hate you. But there will be people who don't like you. So I think you just got to accept that. So I think for me, those are the kind of hardships that I've kind of dealt with. Is proving my worth as a woman, and then just the not being liked was really, really tough for me.
Do you want to come in, Ruth? Or you're on mute.
You go next, Carmel. I'm just reflecting on what I'm willing to share and what I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of challenges, you're always going to come across challenges, really, if I'm honest, in any leadership, as you move up within any part of the profession. I think we've all had good leaders and we've all had bad leaders, what we would term as bad leaders. But as Rena said earlier, you kind of, one of the things I've learned over time is that having leaders that you look at and you think, right, I wouldn't want to be that type of leader is actually a good thing, because you learn a hell of a lot about the type of leader you want to be. And I can think about that now and go, oh, actually, I'm actually grateful for that experience, because it's built a lot of resilience in me, and it's enabled me to be able to stand much more firmly in what I believe in and what I don't believe in. And I think that's, that those are the learnings that you've got to have. And I think it's really important to always have a growth mindset about your career, because challenges are going to come. Like Rena said, I've been in rooms where I've literally been the only woman there, the only Asian woman. I've had instances where I've spoken up and literally nobody else has spoken up with me until we've left the room. And that was tough, really, really tough. And these are like national level negotiations with the NHS. And I was the only person that was speaking up for pharmacy. And then I walked out the room and 3 other people said, "I'm so glad you said that." And I got really angry because I was like, why did you not support me in the room? And so, yeah, you're gonna come across challenges, and it's about how you view those challenges and how you use those challenges to help you to grow.
Thank you for the question. And I think if we were in one-to-one conversations, we probably would also share other things, other challenges that we've had. Some of them, particularly because this has been recorded, are probably not fit for sharing publicly. I think my two comments are ones that are not specific necessarily to women, but are a little bit like Rena, things that sort of light bulb moments that I've had as a leader. First one is about, you know, being true to your values. It's that thing that lots of people are not going to, or people are not going to like you. And that's okay, as long as you stay true to who you are and your values. And make sure that you're doing things for the right reason. You're not doing things to be liked. You're doing things because, you know, it's the right reason to do it. And be open to challenge, obviously. You know, it's not so much about being willing to listen to other people's perspectives. One of the real things that shocked me, and it was a realization that, you know, I'd done a lot of things in my career, a little bit like Rena, because I enjoyed doing them. You know, it was kind of, I just got involved in things, and once you get involved in things, people say, "Oh, Ruth did that for us, so we'll ask her to do it again." And what I hadn't realized when I was doing all that, that I was building my CV, and it wasn't till I got to sort of late 40s, early 50s, I looked at my CV and thought, oh, actually, I've done quite a lot. And it was because I enjoyed doing it. But what happens is that other people start to apply their values to your actions, and they see you doing things and think you're doing things because you're being really ambitious, or you're kind of maybe it's you're being money grabbing or whatever, like, you know, the things I wasn't doing wasn't earning me money, but do you know, that kind of thing, where people look at what you do and they apply their values to it. And that used to really upset me sometimes, that I realized somebody was thinking I was being manipulative, or I was doing something for a reason that I wasn't. And then I thought, do you know what? I can't change that. There's no point in getting upset about it. But what I can change is how I communicate with them. So that's my other point, is that as a leader, you have to be able to adapt your communication to get the best out of your team, particularly as a manager, as well as a leader. You need to understand how the message that you're communicating lands with the different people in your team. So, for example, when I communicate by email, I would normally send a big, long, chatty essay. But for people who really want direct communication, that doesn't land at all, and they don't get the message. So I now have to kind of craft my email in such a way that I'm really clear about what it is I'm wanting. I give a bit of, in fact, I actually quite often use SBAR, if any of you have used that in healthcare communication. I sometimes just consciously put my email in an SBAR format, just because it's not my natural way of communicating. Doesn't mean to say it's the right way to communicate with that other person. So neither of those are specifically to females or to women, but hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you so much, guys. Oh, we've come to the end of the questions now, but I just want to say a big thank you. That was so insightful. And I'm definitely going to make sure to check out all the amazing events that you've got going on, because they sound incredible. Not sure, Natalia, Emeka, do you want to add anything?
I'd just like to say thank you all so much for sharing your time and your insights. I've really enjoyed it. I could sit here all evening, honestly. But you've packed so much advice and wisdom into our together. And did you have anything else you wanted to say? Where can we find out more information about you and the network? Just thank
So
you.
Kamal's just put some things in the chat. And obviously, when you share this recording, if you want to share the links for people to subscribe and follow us on LinkedIn, that would be really helpful too. Because I just think the more we grow, we kind of grow together, and that's kind of idea of the network. It's a network about the people for the people. So that's what we'd really appreciate from you guys. And again, if you have any ideas or any thoughts or suggestions on things we could do to help students in particular, or early career pharmacists or trainee pharmacists, then please just drop us a line.
The group isn't just exclusive to women as well. We have some male allies who attend. One in particular who's really supportive of people, and I think he gets quite a lot out of it as well. So although it's called the Female Leaders Network, you are welcome to be there as a man.
Perfect.
100%. Thank you.
Loved it. No, I loved hearing so many discussions and like, to be honest, hearing the different perspectives as well, and like how the push to get females in leadership position is going on. Like, I'm really, really thankful for all of you guys here to represent your network and just literally combining and collaborating with the BPSA on this. Like, this is just the start. This is not going to be the only work we do with them. There's going to be more because, as I can see, a lot of people are really interested in what you guys have to do, and I'm sure the collaboration will continue. So thank you so much, guys. And yeah, thank you so much for being honest as well, especially Ruth. Like, I was really touched by what you said. Like, it really got to me, and I'm really, really thankful for you sharing that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, guys. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank
Take
you.
care, guys.
Bye.